tonight, Keith, and welcome everybody. I hope you get a lot out of this. And with that said, over to you.
Thank you very much. Much appreciated. Thank you, Michael. This will be recorded, so I would ask you to mute yourselves if you could, just in the interim. Happy to open it up for questions at the end. And basically, I will take questions just to eradicate background noise when I'm talking through the presentation. As I said, I'll open it up in plenty of time for questions at the end. Feel free to use the chat room as well to type questions if you feel you want to do that option. Put up your hand if you want to raise a question at the end. Probably get through this presentation in about 30 to 40 minutes, and I'm happy to take as much questions as you want at the end of the day. Let's talk about getting you grant ready and what you need to do, what's expected of you in terms of writing a grant application, both from public and private sector entities, because we're talking about the full spectrum of grants here. So local, state and federal government, and obviously the philanthropic private sector, the trusts and foundations that are handing out grants for you as well. Okay. So to kick it off, this is where most of us are at, yeah? When we think about grants, 455, pressing send, hoping for the best, basically to get us across the line. This is not where you want to be in terms of a grant application, obviously, okay? So what I'm saying is no last minute grant applications, okay? Get away from doing those. Have a plan, have a process, have a procedure about writing grant applications. So the three words I really want you to go away with tonight in terms of mindset: clear, concise, compelling. That's a well-written grant application, or short, succinct, and to the point. That's what I want you to think about in terms of writing your grant application, okay? Be mindful of the amount of planning that you have to do in advance. If you just leave it to the grant application form itself, you won't do your organization justice, okay? You need to think about basically the amount of work that you need to do basically to justify your organization and sell your organization. Again, I could just ask people to mute themselves. That'd be great, just to eradicate the background noise. Thank you. A grant application is a glorified sales pitch. It's really a test of how you sell your organization for the program, the initiative that you want to achieve funding for. So what I ask my clients all the time as a grants consultant and grants writer is, do you know how to sell yourself as a community organization? Do you know about creating a profile for yourself before the grant application? I'm going to talk about doing that as well in a short time as well. But get away from doing those last minute applications, 4:55 p.m., pressing send, hoping for the best. It's not going to do. There are no shortcuts in the grant writing process. So two words we hate as grants assessors, and a grants assessor that I am myself for local, state and federal government, is copy and paste. All right. Don't ever copy and paste last year's grant application, all right? At least look at it, go through it, amend it, change it, okay? Don't put it in copy and paste. It's not going to do your organization service or justice at the end of the day, okay? Time and capacity is going to be your biggest issue. Time to write the grant and capacity to deliver the grant. As a lot of you are volunteer-based organizations, that's usually the nominated person from the committee, the board, or a volunteer. But this takes time to write a grant. Now, optimally, government grants funding rounds, 4 to 6 weeks, a lot of the time they're open for, okay? That means you need to hit the ground running and be shovel ready. That basically, you know the grant is coming because you have a grants calendar telling you the grants are coming. So you've identified what are the best grants that you should be applying for as an organization. Okay, now that grants calendar is freely available from a number of local government authorities, your Regional Development Australia office, basically, your state and federal MP, obviously advertise a lot of the grants that are out there as well. So make sure you connect with them. So time to write the grant and capacity to deliver the grant, that you have to deliver the grant on time and on budget. So you need to think about project management, time management. And I know I'm giving you a lot of homework and I know I'm giving you a lot of expectation, but that's where we are. The bar has been raised firmly in terms of competitive nature of grants in Australia, because there are so many organizations applying for funding. At the moment, at last listing, there's over 77,000 listed not-for-profits and charities in this country alone, let alone community groups, let alone sporting clubs, let alone P&Cs. All these entities looking for money. And one of those key components you need to think about is, rather than trying to ostracize each other, is collaboration, community capacity building, thinking about working together in a unison for a collaborative approach to apply for that grant funding where it benefits both organizations or multiple organizations at the end of the day. Okay, I'm going to look at you as an organization. Let's say I'm going to play the role of funding body here for a moment. I'm going to look at this. Grants are top-up funding or they're seed funding. I am expecting you to be sourcing revenue from other alternate revenue streams as a community organization, which means fundraising, sponsorship, crowdfunding, bequests, online donations, and other grants. You should be applying for other grants because you have a grants calendar that identifies to you across public and private sector other grants that you should be applying for. So you need to be mindful of that in terms of your application as well. So there's a lot of considerations. And because people are doing last minute applications, inherently that's the problem. They're not thinking about all these things. It's going to justify their application for them at the end of the day, okay? Normally I get applications that look like that. Tell you what, give me the money and then I'll come up with the idea, all right? Doesn't work like that, you know that. You can't even go to the bank manager talking that way, okay? So you need to think about having a plan, which means for your organization, a business plan or a strat plan, but most importantly for the grant, having a project plan that you utilize, don't plagiarize the content from. So I expect you to extrapolate the information from the project plan to populate the answers in the grant questions and in the grant application form. So you need the plan. So I'm expecting you as an organization that you're going to have a business plan or strat plan of how you run your organization. What's the roadmap for your organization moving forward? You're going to have a project plan for what you're trying to get money for, which can be just a one-page project plan. And in fact, your first template, and grants is all about templates as well. So a budget template, project management template, risk management template, your first template is the 5 W's. Who, what, where, when, why. Who are you? What do you do? Where do you do it? When do you do it? Why do you do it? And how much money do you want for it? So you need to think about that as your template. So templates are important. So you need to have a plan. So project plan, and then your CapEx, your budget. Now, talk to your bookkeeper, talk to your accountant, talk to your volunteer who's on your board, who's there as your treasurer, to think about basically who's going to help you with the funding. But someone needs to put together that budget in an articulate fashion that it makes sense. It's financially viable. It's a sound investment opportunity. Okay, because government, particularly at state and federal level, are concerned about VFM, right? Welcome to the land of acronyms and grants. VFM, value for money, because it's taxpayers' money and it must be spent with great probity and transparency. So you need to talk about value for money and providing value for money in your actual application if they're going to invest into you at the end of the day, because government, like any other business who's investing into any organization, they're looking for return on investment, ROI, and KPIs, key performance indicators. How are you measuring that you're on track and on progress to deliver this project on time and on budget? Okay, so the mindset has shifted, right? So people say, but I'm a community organization, I'm volunteer based. Yes, you are. And kudos to you and compliments to all of you for all the great work you do in the community. And long may it continue. But the professional benchmark has been set basically in terms of expectation, because this is a competitive process. Like tendering, like asking for money in any other remit, this is competitive. So you must think about how to make yourself competitive as an organization and get more professional in that regard. So you need to research what grants are out there, which is, as I said, have a grants calendar, knowing inherently what grants, and I've given you some places already where they're telling you what the grants are, where they're listing are, okay? So you need to look at that and look at where you can ascertain the grants. What identifiably are the top 10 grants you should be applying for as an organization, as I said at the end of the day. Okay, so research what's out there, who's giving money, for what and how much and when. Then you need to build a relationship with them. So talk to those relevant people in those funding bodies, so relevant council officers, your state and federal MP. Your state and federal MP, you're obviously going to get letters of support from, testimonials. You need to get those and gather those, all right? And the relevant government entities that you're applying to as well, or even philanthropic, basically. You must profile yourself. People can only help you if they know you exist. So that means through face-to-face, through social media, through your website. Basically, you need to profile yourself as a viable investment opportunity in your local government area. Okay, and reporting. Everyone forgets about this, and this is much to the aggravation of a number of funding bodies in government, that they chase down reports. Obviously, when you deliver on funding, you have to be doing the acquittal, the auditing, the reporting, the evaluation. Make sure you do that on time as well. Okay, whatever stipulated by government, but also more importantly, what you stipulate by yourself. You're evaluating weekly, fortnightly, quarterly, whatever the case may be. So you get in the habit of evaluating everything that you do as an organization. All right, what's working well, what's working poorly. So you can learn from it, but also more importantly, that the funding body can learn from it as well. Okay. And just to remind everyone again, obviously this session's been recorded, so feel free to take notes, but obviously you can go back through this when you get the link at your own discretion, and you can take down the notes and go back through the slides, and you can listen to me again when I'm making points against the slides. So what's required? I'll try to synopsize this down to a short list for yourselves, okay? You need to be seen to be building capacity in your service sector. So whether you're the Girl Guides, whether basically your U3A, whether your Country Women's Association, Men's Shed, local footy club, whatever the case may be, you need to be showing that you're building capacity. You're doing something tangible with community impact, okay? You're all about sustainability, because one of the key questions you're going to get asked by government in a grant application is, how are you going to fund this beyond the grant? Beyond the actual money we give you in the grant, how are you going to fund it? And you need to have an answer to that question, which means you need to have a plan, as I said. You're creating a profile for your business. And I use that word deliberately, even though you may not be a business, you may be a community entity. It's all about profit and loss. They need to, because they'll ask for a copy of your financials. In some instances, your P&Ls, your CapEx, your annual report, they want to see things like that. So they want to see how you're planning your grant application as well, okay? That you obviously have other irons in the fire per se, you're applying for other grants, you're proactive, not reactive, you have a grants calendar, you're doing the equivalent of the grant, the mandatory reporting around the grant, you have a project plan, business plan, and CapEx, your budget that you're actually taking the information from to answer the questions in the grant application. And the application must connect with me, communicate quite clearly what your ask is, and show me how you're going to deliver on time and on budget, okay? The biggest fundamental problem in 2020, as it was in 2019, 2018, 2017, I'll keep on going back, is people do not answer the question in a grant application, which is unbelievable to say, all right? Unbelievable to say, people but not answer the question. They do everything but answer the question. They talk around the question rather than at the question. And that's where most people let themselves down. I'm going to say this as well. Obviously, you can tell from the accent I'm Irish, and I've been in Australia 13 years. And I'm going to say this, right, because I evaluate grants as well. Australians write the longest sentences known to man when it comes to a grant application, all right? If they can get as much in, including the kitchen fridge, they will, all right? Less is more. That's what I want you to think about, right? I don't need all the information about your organization, okay? So a typical grant question would be, please provide a brief overview of your organization. Keyword there in that question is brief. Okay, so I don't need to know that you were founded in 1886 by Johnny Maguire, basically came out from Ireland and settled in Nowra, basically, right? I don't need to go that far back, all right? I just need enough information to suffice an argument, to suffice a mindset that it makes sense that basically you're an established organization, you've got runs on the board, you've got great historical value, you know what you're doing, and most importantly, you know how to manage money, particularly other people's money, namely government grant funding, okay? So remember as well that your project and application planning to include the collation of mandatory documentation. So you need to read up on what's happening. So you need to read the papers and the policies that are being produced by council, right? The 2025 vision, 5-year plans, community development plans. But you need to be across your own financial reports, your proof of incorporation, your GST status, your ABN, photos, plans and designs if you're going to do an infrastructure project, letters of support, as we talked about from state and federal MPs, the total cost of the project, even though you may be only applying for a pilot project. Providing quotes, getting those quotes, that's going to take you time. You can't do that in the last week if you're trying to write a grant application. Okay, so you're going to have to get those quotes. And even your AGM or meeting minutes, you have to go back to your secretary and get all those minutes accumulated. I'm looking for broader community outcomes and impacts as well beyond your organization. So if you build it, will they come, right? So government love inputs, outputs, outcomes. Inputs, what are you putting into it? Outputs, what's going to be translated out of it, the investment of the funding. And outcomes, how it's translatory across New South Wales. So whatever we do basically in your LGA can be learning for all the other LGAs across New South Wales and even Australia. And broader community outcomes and impacts beyond that group, as I said, to be evaluated and acquitted. Look at that community capacity building, look at collaboration, because quintessentially I'm asking you, do you play nicely in the sandpit? Okay, do you work well with other community organizations? That's what I want to see, right? Don't be silo-esque. Don't be just, it's us and then the rest of the world, all right? Think about partnerships and where you are and what you do, okay? Ensuring eligibility, basically, another bugbear, basically. I had so many people when I assess grants, they're not even eligible to apply. Another thing I love about Australia, that's why I love this country. the she'll be right mentality. Oh yeah, mate, just get it in. It'll be all right. You're not eligible to apply. Ah, yeah, mate, but come on, I pay my taxes, pay my rates, I deserve a grant, like, you know. It doesn't work like that, and you know that, okay? So be understanding basically of that, and be auspiced by other organizations if you're not eligible. Sign that MOU, Memorandum of Understanding. Another organization could become the lead applicant, and they can actually auspice the grant on your behalf at the end of the day. But I'm really looking at, you know, similar goals, outcomes, and ethics between those groups as well, and where there's potential collaboration and relationship across the LGA, who else you could partner with. Particularly, you know, schools partnering with schools, sporting clubs partnering with sporting clubs and associations, community groups partnering with community groups, all right? Focusing on outcomes. What's actually going to happen with this grant? What's it going to do for society? What's the translatable? How's it going to affect the end user, your customers, your clients, your patrons, your members, your players, whatever the case may be, if you're a sports club, okay? So those broader community outcomes, how's it going to be good for the local government area, all right? The impacts beyond that immediate group as well, as I said, right? If you build it, they will come. So we've seen a lot of, you know, these sporting hubs being created now by Tennis New South Wales and Netball New South Wales in conjunction with local government authorities, where they're maximizing the facility. So instead of the tennis club not being utilized, they're sharing it as a training facility basically for netball or futsal or other sporting entities. Those entities who put in those proposals are the ones that get the grants, because they're collaborative, they work together basically. It's not because they're a different sporting code, we don't talk to them, we don't work with them. It's about collaboration, okay? What funding bodies are looking for? Well, who are you and what do you do? What do you want the money for? How does this ask link to your strategic plan? How and who will it impact in the local government area? What's your strategy and your storytelling? So business storytelling is now huge in grants, right? So which is basically where you come from as an organization, where are you as an organization, where you're going as an organization. Otherwise called in beginning, middle, and end, okay? So I'm not asking you to be a good grants writer. I'm asking you to be a good grants editor. Cut, cut, cut. Less is more, all right? I don't need everything, I just need enough. So strategy and storytelling, inputs, outputs, and outcomes, as I said, your total project value, even though you may be only asking for a pilot project, and people give to people, not to projects, which means I have to like you to give you the money, which means that you have to have a profile. Okay, so if we would have talked in the past, you would have discussed the proposal with me. All right, at the end of the day, relationships are huge here. So you need to think about that. As I said, don't just put all your eggs in one basket and apply on the grant and not do everything else around the periphery. And certainly don't put all your eggs in one basket and just apply for one grant, because there's a multitude of grants out there. All right, as distinguished at the outset, there's a huge amount of grants. And I'm not just talking about COVID-19 response grants, which is a plethora, but there's normally a huge amount of grants, funding rounds, which there are. Are you aware of them all? Are you eligible to apply for them all? Should you be applying for them all? Some of them you shouldn't be applying for because you're not grant ready, because you shouldn't be applying for a grant you know you're not going to get. But you need, like tender writing, you need to have a self-evaluation mechanism, a go, no go for yourself to understand why waste time and effort on a grant application we're never going to get. So why should we write it? We should have a meeting with the committee, ourselves internally go, it's better actually if we target something else and go for another grant, or wait till next year and we'll apply for funding then. So most of the community groups that I work with now as clients, they're sitting down and doing the two words that everyone's doing out of COVID, consolidating and pivoting, which means that they're doing a spring clean of their organization and looking at where they are and where they need to be. And I'm helping them do that. And that's basically business planning, grants, tenders, fundraising, sponsorship, volunteer management, governance, committee management, all of those things, succession planning. We help them with all those different things. They're thinking about, right, how do we get ready on the other side of COVID-19? How do we survive? What's sustainable? Two big words in grants that you need to talk about and justify in your argument when you're writing a grant application is innovation and sustainability. And I really want to see that. I want to fund something different. I want to look at something different to fund. And I want to see that you're a sustainable organization, that you're going to be here next year, the year after, which I know is hard in these times to look at projections in that regard, but that's what I want to see. Okay, and you must give me that assurance to some degree, all right? Really, there's too many organizations out there telling me they're infallible. You know, nothing ever goes wrong in our organization. And I went, you need to open the front door and check out the real world, to be honest with you, all right? You know, it's understanding that basically you can't be selling that, because that's not true, obviously, at the end of the day, All right, so they're investing basically in an output, buying an outcome, basically. All right, so it's not necessarily how you do it, but it's more interested in what happens because of the money. Okay, what are you going to bring to society? What's the value add? What's needed in the community that we need to be made aware of as funding bodies, that we can fund accordingly at the end of the day. Invest in positive impact, a very key phrase for state and federal government. They love that phrase, positive impact. Something tangible happens in the community with great effect. Okay, evidence of demand. If the old adage, if you build it, will they come? You know, I get so many community, especially sports clubs come to me and go, Keith, I want to build the new ANZ stadium basically in Nowra. And I'm going, great. Are you going to get 80,000 people there on a Saturday, basically, all right? It's just basically, you've got to quantify and qualify your ask. Make sure it's a measured approach to what you're asking for. Proof of outcome, okay, that you can factor in the intangibles. Things go wrong in dealing with projects and rolling things out. We know that. So government is risk averse, and rightly so. So is the private sector. And most of us are as individuals. So I'm subscribing that you need a risk management plan, because in some way, shape or form, they'll either ask you for a copy of it, they'll want an assurance that you have one, or that you're extrapolating or taking out of it and taking text and from your risk management plan and populating answers in your grant application accordingly because of that. Risk management is huge. All right. So if you don't have one, get one. Now, all these templates that I'm talking about, right? Governance, risk management, budget, they're all on the web. There's loads of free services on the web to download these templates and build them and adapt them accordingly for your own community organization, sporting club, or the like. Okay. So your grants checklist. Are there grants for us? Are we eligible to apply once we've identified those? Know what grants are available, have your grants calendar, making the submission, who's going to be doing the writing, who's going to write the grant on behalf of your organization. Okay. Now, little tip here, right? If you want to get someone to do pro bono, you're looking for someone obviously in your committee or volunteers that is either an ex-journalist, teacher, done business writing, a manager, someone who knows how to write a professional business document. That's who you're looking to do if you want to get it done pro bono, okay? Making a submission, obviously, make sure you get it in on time as well. Please get it on time. The amount of people that ask for extensions, the amount of people that don't get it in on time, basically, is just phenomenal. Doing the work, obviously, delivering on it when you actually get the funding. I love when I get the phone call from people when I help them with their grant applications, go, Keith, get what? We got the grant. What do we do now? Well, probably what you said in the grant would be really, really good. And it's this surprise factor going, oh my God, we have to do it now, okay? And reporting in the equivalent, get in the habit of doing the evaluation and reporting on it at the end of the day, okay? So what makes for a successful proposal? Well, it's within the funding area of giving. What they're giving money for is what you can ask for. You're eligible to apply. They're actually giving money for that endeavor that you're seeking to achieve. People think there's grants out there for everything. There isn't. Sorry to shatter the illusion for people. There isn't. All right. There are of a set protocol and focus, obviously, in society. The sufficient documentation supported with facts. So when you write a grant application, make a statement, back it up with facts. Grants assessors love facts and stats, tangible data that can't be argued against. Reference government policy documents, local, state, or federal. Your own, there's an expectation even on you as a community organization that you've done qualitative and quantitative research. You understand what needs to happen. You build a business case. And a project that reflects people's needs and organizational needs. And a lot of community applicants forget about this. They write it on behalf of themselves, right? I call it the Kat and Kim principle, which is look at me, look at me, look at me, all right? And they just talk about themselves. They don't talk about basically what the end user, their customer, their client, their consumer, their member, their player, whatever it is, how they benefit. In other words, general public, okay? That's what I'm interested in. Why are projects declined? I could spend the whole hour just talking about this, to be honest with you, so I've tried to synopsize it down to 2 slides as best I could. These are some of the blatantly obvious reasons I see all the time where people get knocked out of the ballpark in round 1, basically. All right. So as a grants assessor, the first thing I look for is eligibility, that you're eligible to apply. Then I look for, secondly, you're able to answer the question, and then I do a deep dive. All right. I obviously look at skim read. I'll do a read through first. Then I'll do more quantified and qualified read. And even if need be, I will go looking at your website, and I will go looking at basically your reports, and I will go looking at your Facebook and all those other things, okay? So problem hasn't been documented properly. Problem hasn't struck the reader significant. There's no wow factor in terms of an investment opportunity here. Prospective client groups haven't been involved in the planning or determining, which means no community capacity building or collaboration. The proposal is poorly written, hard to understand, lost in translation. Proposal objectives do not match the objectives of funding source. What they're funding is not what you're asking for. Proposal budget is not within the range of the funding available. So again, you're asking for too much money. Okay, they only give out so much to so many organizations, only so much on offer. The proposal program has been coordinated with individuals. You haven't done community capacity building or collaboration. I don't know your capabilities as an organization because you haven't talked to me in advance and you haven't done the relationship building with me. The project objectives are too ambitious in scope. You're asking again, trying to do, you know, you're going to say that we're going to do this in 18 months when you know it's going to take you 36 months to do it. They didn't follow the guidelines. In other words, you didn't answer the question. Insufficient evidence, basically, to substantiate your argument. You didn't back it up. And evaluations procedure is inadequate. In fact, you even don't have an evaluation. Okay, so these are some of the reasons that basically people are failing. So be mindful of the problems so you can address the solutions to them. Okay, so the statement of need exercise, as I said, it's like a go no go document, and you can Google statement of need, right? And it'll come up with templates. It's a 15 to 30-minute exercise. It's going to save you procrastination. Instead of writing a grant application that is haphazard, it's lacking, and you're not going to get it, you can save yourself by going through a series of questions over 15 minutes with your committee and with your volunteers, basically, because these are questions that you would ask yourself, but also questions you would take from the grant application. If you're able to answer these questions, then you can green light your application. If you're not able to answer these questions, you shouldn't write the grant application because you don't have enough information or data to actually suffice an application. So be mindful of that, right? And there's another 2 examples of questions there. So I say brainstorm and write down 3 needs and 2 solutions. Okay, just get in the habit of doing it. Now, community groups that I work with do this for all decision making to do with community groups. So if they're going to purchase something, rent something, lease something, buy something, make strategic decisions on behalf of their organization, they go through this process. 15 to 30 minutes, it's very helpful in terms of decision making as a community organization. And there's an expectation as well on you as an organization that basically you are going to have a goal statement, have an objective statement, activities and tasks that are necessary to accomplish the objective, benefits or results from what you're trying to achieve from your grant, and how you define success and how you measure success. And a lot of community groups that I work with really struggle to tell me how good they are. That's surprising to say that, you know, because this is temper fine line between talking yourself up too much and then this reluctance to talk about yourself, this tall poppy syndrome, right? That I can't be talking about myself too much because of basically who they think I am, right? So you need to actually sell yourself, but to the optimum rate that is seen as an investment opportunity, basically, that you're articulate, you're professional, you know what you're doing as a community group, you're organized, you know how to handle money, and you know how to deliver on projects on time and on budget. So this is what I do when I get a grant. This is an example from a previous government grant. I highlight the key words in the questions. I either underline them or I'll highlight them. And that's what I need to address in my answer. Primary purpose, brief overview. And again, even in question 2, you'll see, because grants are online now, we don't count words anymore, we count characters. Okay, 3,000 characters is what you've got to write as an answer for that. 500 words. 500 words is not much when you think the average A4 page is 250 words. Okay. Demonstrate. Demonstrate in English. Show. I need to see a case study. I need to see an example of how your understanding of the need of the funded activity. So how you've done an equivocal program in the past of something size and nature wise. That's what I'm looking for. Describe, implementation, government's favorite phrase, value for money, VFM. Okay. Demonstrate your experience again. So show me through a case study, and you can use these as subheadings: developing, delivering, managing, monitoring. Be mindful that certainly as a grants assessor, I love bullet points and subheadings. I love white space. White space is actually your friend. So I can actually read what you're writing rather than these Egyptian hieroglyphics, blocks of text that I get sometimes, and it's hard to decipher what you're writing basically, okay? Everything's thrown together basically, all right? Clear, concise, compelling, short, succinct, and to the point. As I said, that is what a good, well-written grant application is. Nothing more, nothing less. So you're going to do draft 1, draft 2, draft 3 until you get it narrowed down and focused that it reads well, sounds well. So yes, at one end of the spectrum, it's a test on your grammar, syntax, punctuation, spelling. And the other end of the spectrum is putting together an articulate business case that is value for money in terms of investment. So conditions, obviously, is part of the mandatory acquittal process. They expect you to do a report. You're properly insured, you're incorporated, you have all the relevant credentials and accreditations basically to legitimize yourself as an organization, to be eligible to apply. And certainly if you're doing an infrastructure project, I'm here to say to you that your DA should be ideally confirmed, not pending, in terms of getting something built basically, if you're going to do it basically, and have all your necessary quotes already lined up, and your architect's drawings, and your engineering works, and your building inspectors, and everything done. As I said, you need to be shovel ready, okay? So 50-50 funding is huge, very popular with a number of local government authorities. It's a cost offset and a risk offset. So for you, a lot of people try to put in kind, which is great in terms of quantifying the value of your logistics, resources, personnel. Volunteering, New South Wales quantified that volunteers are worth $29 an hour. Give yourself a pay rise tonight, basically. All right. So you need to think about 50-50 funding in terms of match funding. If governments say we'll offset the cost, you still need to come up with 50% of the funding as your organization. That's a financial decision for your organization, whether that's viable for you. And you understand the question. And certainly, if you want clarification, read the FAQs, the frequently asked questions, attend the webinar or the face-to-face briefing, the good old days pre-COVID, ring the hotline, ask questions. Don't speculate. They're there to help you. Grants officers in council, basically employees at state and federal government level, they're there to help you and guide you. Now, they can't give you the answers to questions. I repeat that. They will not give you the answers to question 5 and question 7, all right? But they're there to guide you basically as to what indicatively you should be putting in and what's be good and what's bad, all right? So you should apply for grants that suit particular needs to your organization, taking into account the time to deliver on the grants if successful, available grantors for the type and purpose, the grantors' requirements, what they want to get out of giving this money out, and when the funds are needed and the organization's policies, both yours and theirs. You should apply for grants that are a suitable fit for your organization. What's best fit? Ethically, who would you take money off? You know, I've worked with organizations that have said no to McDonald's. Okay, I've worked with organizations that have said no to alcohol companies. And I've worked with organizations that said no to club grants because it's Clubs New South Wales and a percentage of that is profits of gambling. So I don't mind what way you make your decision. That's down to you and your organization. But you have to look at a suitable fit or who you're happy basically partnering with to garner that funding. But more importantly as well, that you need to be on the same, you need to be singing off the same hymn sheet. What government's trying to achieve is what you're trying to achieve as a community organization. All right, you need to show that roadmap and you show that narrative in your actual grant application as well. So show that symmetry in your argument, please. Okay. How do you collaborate with others? As I said, it's a big thing now, right? Because we're lacking resources. But we still have identifiable needs in society. So, some unfortunately organizations have hit the wall pre-COVID, post-COVID, and they don't have a succession plan, and it's really worrying, and they've been around for a long time, but who's going to come up and pass the baton on to? So you really need to think about collaboration with other entities in the community and how you can build capacity to service that need that's still in existence. So talk about need for funding, the commercial potential of investment into your organization and what you can do for society or what you can do for the local government area and how you benefit the local government area and that you're much needed in the local government area, okay? WeFM and VFM, I talked about VFM, which is value for money. WeFM is what's in it for me, very popular with the philanthropics. Where can I leverage my brand, my logo, my corporate social responsibility, okay? Market opportunity, obviously they want to see this an opportunity. Have they invested, have they given a grant into your LGA, right? In what you're doing based in the Shoalhaven, okay? Have they given grants there before? Is there a real opportunity to invest in a program they haven't seen elsewhere in New South Wales, okay? What's your management capability? As I said, the caliber of people that are running the show and managing their money. And remember this, folks, even when you get the grant, it's never your money. It's never your money. It's just holding in your bank account, all right? You're just basically appropriating that funding basically for government or for the private sector basically. So it's not your money, okay? Your management capabilities, as I said, and the local or the national benefits, the knock-on effect that can be translated, and this knowledge of what you're doing, the program you're running out can be shared and propagated elsewhere. So know the program rules, plan your application, be creative but honest. Don't say you can do it in 18 months when it's going to take you 24. Research successful grants, who's out there, who they give money to, for what and how much. Provide the information required, no more, no less. Answer the question you're asked, not what you think you're asked. So keep on rereading the question, and no superfluous information. Okay? I'll tell you what I've seen in grants in recent years. The top 3 things I've seen: selfies, emojis, and text language. Now, you know and I know a business document like a grant has no place for selfies, emojis, and text language. Okay? So thanks for the smiley face, but save it for an email to your grandmother instead. All right? Really, it's not basically the place for a grant application. All right? People take this haphazard approach. All right? And you can't really do that. It's a business document. It's a business document. Okay? So social media and grants, as I said, I may look at you and profiles everything. So you need to think about, I'm not subscribing, you have to use all of these. Use what you think is pertinent and relevant for your organization. Obviously you have a website as well, would be very good. But a lot of organizations are using these to profile themselves. So when I go Googling you and looking at you basically and determining the validity of whether we should invest into you with a grant, you have a narrative, you have people talking, you have videos of what you do and how you do it. You have testimonials, people saying how great it is to work with this community agency, this community group, this sporting club, how much they benefit the community. Tick, tick, tick. Okay. So grants is about telling a story, painting a picture with words. Yes, it is. Okay, it really is join the dots. Get away from that last minute application, as I said, pressing send and now praying to any data you believe in to get you across the line, because it won't happen. Proactive rather than reactive, have a grants calendar. People can help you if you don't exist, which is have a profile for your organization. Is it where it needs to be? Do people know you're there to actually donate to you, give you money, fundraise for you? And cultivate a relationship with the funding body. As I said, talk to them in advance. Now, intended results should lead to or contribute to the results expected. My point being, whatever you stipulate in your grant application, back it up, show them how you're going to deliver on it. Something has to happen with the money, okay? I worked with a tennis club recently who got money from New South Wales Sport and Rec. And a year later, that money was still in their bank account. They hadn't done one iota with spending that money at all. Obviously, Sport and Rec came asking to see, hey, how's our project going that we gave you the $50,000 for? And they went, oh, you know, it's going well. Thanks for asking. Where's the report? Can we come out and do a site visit to see? They were supposed to put disability access to a toilet in the tennis club. Nothing was done. Not a good look. My point being, you don't want to hand back the money. You don't want to have a black mark against your name to have to hand back the money. Okay? Grant givers and makers are in the business of enablement. Very flavour of the month word, and has been for a long time in Canberra and Macquarie Street. Enablement. You're an enabling organisation. You're a proactive organisation. You're a doing organisation. You get things done. That's what they want, that assurance. And the last bullet point, well, this is where I teach you a new language tonight. So you may know French, German, Italian, but you're going to learn grant speak tonight. This is grant speak, using keywords and key terminology. I'm all about positive language, by the way, in grants. Declarative rather than conditional verbs. Who did honours English at school? All right. It's all about basically positive language. We are, we will, we endeavour, rather than if you give the money to us, something might happen with it, maybe. All right. Don't want conditional, want positive. So you've got to give the assurances that you're flexible, responsive, you manage risk, you're all about community service delivery, you enhance community development initiatives, you advance participation in community life. I don't mind if you use any of that, but leave it as a standalone phrase. It doesn't do you any justice. Back it up, give evidence, give an example of how you do that. So if you're going to say advanced participation in community life, sounds good, looks good, give me an example. Don't just say it, it's a throwaway remark then, okay? Work with other connectors, as I said, in the community. Look at internal and external resourcing. That means, has anyone in your application written a grant before? Are they willing to put up their hand and help you this time? Do you need to externally look at a grants writer to help you with that? I wish there's numerous out there, including myself, and grants consultants like myself. Numerous resources out there, but obviously council is there to help you in the first instance. So utilize that resource. There's great resources there for you within council at no charge. So use that, and a number of other government agencies as well. And current affairs, all right? Be across what's happening, basically. As someone said to me, you mean John Barilaro? No, I don't mean John Barilaro, all right? I mean basically that you need to think about current affairs and what terms of government basically are giving out in terms of funding, all right? Subscribing to their newsletters, their mail outs, their subscription, their pop notifications, all those things that are happening, right? There's always resources out there for you in terms of funding. There's loads of information around funding. It's just knowing where to go and look for it and get that information at the end of the day. As I said, your first template, who are you, what do you do, where do you do it, when do you do it, why do you do it, and how much money do you want for it. Start with that, you'll do well. So follow the instructions, tailor your proposal and budget specifically into what they're trying to achieve as a grant funding body. Positive language, as I said, shorter is better, keep your proposal tight and details condensed. Document the need or problem at multiple levels, but be specific. Now, I give money as a grants assessor for solutions, not problems. All too often, the grant applications I get are all about problems. They never give me solutions. You will get a grant for a solution, not a problem. You need to highlight the problem to about 30% value, but more importantly, you need to give me the solution. That's why I'm giving you the funding. So if you say I need floodlights for my footy club, what's the problem? Why do you need floodlights? And what's the solution? Why do you need floodlights? What are they going to do? Well, it's going to open up more training. It could be nighttime tournaments. I can get other sporting clubs in potentially to use it. I could lease it or rent it, basically, if it's a non-council facility. Council facility, I'm going to work with them closely, basically, on doing the floodlights. All these different things, all right? Document the need or problem on the levels, but be specific. All right. I've been in the grants game as the grants guy consultant since 2012. I've been in the grants overall for nearly 25 years, initially back in Ireland, then coming out to Australia to work for local and state government in grants and university sector. One of the first grant applications I assessed as an independent consultant was an organisation, a community group from regional New South Wales, I kid you not, who was applying for world peace. They were applying for a grant for world peace, which they quantified at $53,000 Australian. Bargain of a lifetime. I was going to take out a second mortgage, and me and Donald Trump were going to get the Nobel Peace Prize that day, right? And I was just like, come on, that's not realistic, right? You can't quantify world peace against that amount of money, okay? So I want you to be realistic in what you're asking for, realistic in your budget, and realistic in the traction point of what you can get, basically, and how you're going to deliver for the community, by the community. So talk about the investment rather than a gift, avoid dwelling on problems, focus on opportunities, and provide a realistic assessment of the urgency. I know you need the money yesterday. We all needed the money yesterday, but it might be a couple of weeks or even months in the bigger funding rounds before you get the money, all right? That means you can't start in a project because it'll be deemed null and void in retrospective. So don't get ahead of yourself. Just wait till you get signed the contract. Now, when I work with my clients, I work through about 4 or 5 different project plans. I want to share one with you tonight. This is one that I use and they use a lot, basically. So project title, when they're conceptualizing a project, they have the content, and then they're going to transcribe that across into the grant application. So the project title, less than 10 words, project summary up to 100 words, which includes purpose, scope, people, financials, timescales, risks, implementation, all in 100 words. And that will become after drafting and editing, basically. You won't get it first time, but it's a good practice exercise for you to get it down, because we're working off word counts that you're going to be using in grants. And then your full project description, which is 1,000 words, including all of that. So you need to be doing this as an organization anyway, when you're conceptualizing projects, let alone when you're applying for grants. Okay. The hard part is who you're going to find to write it. Okay. So 7 key grants principles coming out of Commonwealth government. You can see how much they love the words effective and efficiency in Canberra, but it's true, right? You abide by these. This is called the 7 commandments in the grants game, right? It's basically these 7 key principles. If you stick by these in terms of what government expectations, particularly at state and federal government level, you'll do quite well in grants. Okay, so you have robust planning and design in what you do, your outcomes orientation, you're all about measuring scale, nature, and complexity and risk associated with your project. You're all about collaboration and partnership. That's why I've been harping on about it all night. You're all about governance and accountability. You're all about probity and transparency, internal controls, what government calls total quality management, TQM, which is like ISO 9001 benchmark, quality assurance, quintessentially. Achieving value with public money, back to VFM again, value for money. These 7 will go a long way to help you, basically. So go back and look at those at your own discretion. And my top 10, make it about your reader, who you're writing to for the funding. Answer the question, try not to waffle, make it clear what's in it for them, the return on investment. Be direct in the way you answer the question. Don't talk around the subject, talk at the subject. Avoid sweeping statements, give great examples, mini case studies. Remember, looks can kill. If it looks sloppy, must be written by a sloppy organization. Jog their memory if you've worked with them in the past or been in receipt of funding from them in the past, and make it word perfect. Old journalistic adage, count your words and make your words count. And that's me. I'm also on LinkedIn, so feel free to access me there, drop me a line if you have any questions offline. Happy to open it up for questions now. So if anyone wants to unmute yourself and ask a question, feel free to use that, or please use the chat room. I'll check that as well, but talk away. Otherwise, you're all getting Riverdance and Irish jokes for the next 15 minutes.
I've got about 20 questions.
I'll take one to start with, Sadie. Let's go with that.
Okay, my first thing is in relation to the word counts. So quite often, you know, specifically if you're using things like Smarty Grants and that, and all the online applications, they have word limits on them.
Yeah.
But sometimes the word limits are far more than what I need. And I worry that they're expecting something more when I've actually been able to make it simply into what it is.
Yeah.
What's the guideline?
The guideline is go 10% under.
Okay.
So if I'm asking for 1,000 words, Sadie, I'm ideally looking for 900. You know
okay,
what I mean?
But if somebody's like asking for 150 and I give them 75, is that okay if I've answered?
Yeah. Exactly, Sadie. If you've answered the question, yes, there's no need to expand it, right? There's no need to inflate it or waffle or wordology. Ideally, if it's 150 still, Sadie, I'd be looking for 100 optimally.
Okay.
I'd be happy with that.
Okay.
Because the mindset from the funding body, Sadie, is I'm giving you the latitude to write 150 and you're only taking 75. Now, you may write it in a very articulate fashion that you can get it across to 75. Kudos to you, Sadie. Well done. They're going to be as happy as Larry. Okay, exactly. But just go through it when you're going through and drafting, going, have I got every quintessential element in there that I need to really sell it?
Okay. Thanks.
No worries. If I have more time, I'll come back to you at 19, but I'm going to give other people time to ask questions, all right?
No
Excellent.
worries.
Anyone else? Questions, comments, clarification?
I have one, Nikki. We are part of a big organisation, but we're a little part of it. And there are grants being given to our parent organisation. How much overlay should there be between a small locality project and one where the parent organisation may already be getting funds for that project centrally?
Yeah, you got to be very careful about that, basically. There's no duplication or perceived duplication there at all. So you need to clearly define with your governing body that if they've applied, you probably are exempt from applying for something for that again in some way aspect of the project. So you really have to conceptualize new projects or version 2.0 of the project, basically, because projects have to evolve and grow. That's the only way you're going to have a get out of jail card on it.
Yeah.
Is that okay?
At cumulative applications, so where you've got a big project, but you want to stage it.
Yeah, you just got to justify sustainability, that basically you have the capacity to deliver it over a multi-year spectrum. Resources, logistics, personnel, as I said previously, just prove that. They have no problem with that. I mean, I'm doing a government grant from the Fair Work Ombudsman, which is due next Friday. That's a 4-year project, basically. And they're offering like $1.8 million a year as a grant, basically. So, but you really have to justify yourself. You're going to have heavy expenses at the beginning to set it up, but expenses will diminish then on a sliding scale over the 4 years. Yeah. Thank you. No worries. Cheryl, thank you for your question. Risk assessment chart. Is it for the project you're applying for? Yes, it is, basically. Do you make one suitable for the grant you're applying for? Yes, you do. Ideally, you'd have a risk management plan, Cheryl, for your actual organization, but you would definitely do a standalone risk assessment internally, let alone externally, if the funding body is looking for it, to measure and quantify and qualify the risks associated with delivering this project to you, the end user, and as I said, most importantly, to the funding body. Okay, anyone else, any questions? Feel free to use the chat room or just have a chat with me. Pick my brain. Otherwise, Sadie can ask her 19 on behalf of the rest of you. Sadie, go on, go for it. Next one.
Okay, and just another question in relation to those online grant applications, because you were talking about white space and all of that, and I'm very much into formatting things to look really
good,
readable and well, but quite often they don't have, like, if you copy and paste it from your Word document, it gives you some, but then when they print it out at the other end, or that, I worry that it's kind of come out.
Yeah, it does. You're right, and you should be worried. It does come out higgledy-piggledy. So basically, you're right about the formatting. That means you can't do the copy and paste. It doesn't work. So you're going to have to write it out completely again, basically. And even in certain federal government grants, they contextualize the data. They really squish it all in, even though they auto-format it, basically, even though you're looking at it, it looks fantastic. But by the time I get it as an assessor, it's really all squished up together, basically. So it's just the way the program's set out, basically, and the way that Capterra or other grant service providers for government do it, basically. So just be very careful about that. You don't cut off the ending of your argument or the conclusion of your statement, exactly, basically. So I subscribe to the way you're doing it and have that formatted approach, but don't do the copy and paste from your Word document, because it mightn't translate across, or don't dump it in per se, yeah.
Okay, cool. I'll give somebody else a chance, and then I'll come back with my next one.
No worries. Anyone else? Anything striking, anything up what I've said to people? Are they shocked and alarmed by what I've said today? Have you learned something new? Someone's busy typing away, so there's a question coming. Anything at all, pick my brain while I'm here, obviously, here to help. All right, so if you have a grant due at the moment, or you're about to write a grant, if you want to ask me a question on that, anything I've said in any of the slides, anything, as I said, it's taking you back, basically. Personally, who knew you could have so much fun writing a grant, huh? Who knew that tonight, huh? All right. Okay, it's easy to say all these things fast in an Irish accent, isn't it, really? All right, you get away with murder, really, at the end of the day. So, all right, so we got some questions coming in. Great. Jenny, thank you. What are the examples of in-kind support other than one's labor, basically? Logistics, resources, basically any facet of your organization that you can really put a dollar value to, Jenny. So that's usually logistics, resources, personnel are the big three, obviously, volunteers being the main one, as I talked about earlier on. But, you know, premises be another one, obviously. The price, you know, if you own your own place, basically, they would be the big ones I'd be looking at. Same with equipment, transport, things like that. You know, you can put a dollar value to a lot of those things, basically. Cheryl, did you say earlier that there's a website to view all grants available? Well, you know, Grants Connect is a great one, basically, at federal government level. Certainly, when you're looking at, you have your local government authority, obviously, which will list a lot, basically, as well. Regional Development Authority use the Grants Guru to have a grant finder, so you can go onto RDAs and they have a grant finder for all the grants that are out there, both public and private sector. And some of the subscription services you can look at, like I do grants calendars for my clients, but some of the other name ones you may want to look at as well. Our Community, which are based out of Melbourne, they're a big one. They'll give you a monthly grants calendar. Grants Guru, as I said, out of Melbourne. Grants Hub, out of Melbourne. Melbourne's the capital of philanthropy, by the way, if you hadn't guessed. Then you have Strategic Grants out of Brisbane. Pro Bono Australia out of Melbourne. Fundraising Institute of Australia out of Sydney. Philanthropy Australia out of Sydney. All these entities, they're subscription services. So what'll happen is you'll pay a couple $100 for a yearly subscription. You'll get an email every fortnight or once a month telling you what grants are opening, what grants are closing. They're well worth the investment. As I said, I do it, a number of other entities do it, but free resources already out there for you. Local government are fantastic. Usually have some great resources on their grants pages on their websites. Regional Development Authority, which is another agency, you'll have one close to you by where you are in Shoalhaven. And basically other government agencies at state and federal government level as well. They'd be really good. Some chambers of commerce do it, some BECs do it. They're the ones that come to mind, yeah. Susan, how do you distinguish you from other sports, same code? What are the things you would stand out? I'll answer that in two ways. One, as I said, I advocate a collaboration, Susan. I know that's hard intra-code, I appreciate that. But, you know, there's obviously been MOUs signed at state level and association level, as I said, between the likes of tennis and netball and basketball as well, in terms of collaborating across sporting precincts and sporting hubs and sporting facilities. But to stand basically, stand out from other sports being in the same code, I don't think you need to stand out. I think you need to look at partnerships. I really do. I think you need to look at collaboration, and you're all in this together, particularly if you're the same code. I mean, I know you're competitive on the field, and so you should be. But off the field, I think you can do a lot together in unison. I think, you know, in terms of growing the code, growing the sport, across multicultural, across Aboriginality, across youth, all these different, I think it's about more collaboration rather than going up against each other and butting heads per se. That's what I feel about it anyway, certainly. Sadie, you got one last one for us?
Yeah, I've got two more.
All right, you got 2 minutes. Go for it.
I'll be really quick. So the first thing is when you're talking about collaboration, is it a good thing? Like we try to include, like we might not be doing a project with someone, but we support them and they support us. So we have a collaboration between us. So we have letters of support from different agencies within our thing that's saying, these people are great. They really help us do our job, that kind of thing. Is that okay to bring them, like, you know, like to include a letter of support from, you know, whether it's your local council or other community
Yes.
service organisations?
Yes, very much so. Yep.
Okay, excellent. And the other thing is, have you got any idea of the amount of grants? Like I just calculated, I've been writing grants for our organisation since April, and I've applied for grants up to $340 odd thousand. We've been successful. Now they haven't all come in yet, but we've been successful for about, you know, 10% of that. Is that like what would be your expectation? Like you can't expect to get every grant you apply for. What would be a level of expectation to be aiming for?
Well, I'll be honest with you, like my success rate at the moment is 63%.
Okay.
Okay, so on average, if you're getting 4 out of every 10 grant applications, you're doing well.
Okay. Which is actually, I think I'm 6 out of 10 at the moment. Like
Keep it up. Congratulations. You'll put me out of a job. There you go. All right.
All
Good
right.
on you. Keep it going. Yeah, and I fluctuate. I mean, I've been as high as 71%. You know, it depends on the grant. Depends basically on the amount of work that's necessary. Every grant is different. People need to remember that case by case. But keep up the good work. You're obviously on the right track, basically. Keep those runs on the board. Quantify and qualify the next grant by the previous grant. Show them that you have a track record. Someone else has invested into you. Do the on-sell.
Excellent. All right. Thank you.
You're welcome. Cheryl, you have a question on P&C committee. If you're a P&C committee, do not have DGR. Does this have an impact? It does, Cheryl. Yeah, DGR, deductible gift recipient status, which is huge for community groups and not-for-profits. It's mandatory with the philanthropic trusts and foundations. You must be incorporated and you must have DGR status. Now, of over the 70,000, as I said, community organizations in Australia, only about 40,000 have DGR status. So you either go off and attain it from the ACNC and the Australian Tax Office, or basically you get auspiced by an organisation who has DGR status and they become the lead applicant on the actual application. So they're your choices really, Cheryl. You'll have to check with the Department of Education as well. I don't think you're allowed as Department of Education or even under the school for P&Cs for a lot of them to actually apply for DGR. Because the Department of Education will have a tight hold on what the school is applying for basically. So you might want to check with the principal on that basically before you actually go off and look at talking to your accountant and your lawyer basically about that DGR application. Okay. Couple more, if anyone wants to throw in the last couple, because I know I was a few minutes late jumping on. Apologies about that. I was having a shocker with Zoom. We managed to get there in the end of the day. Anyone else? A couple last questions. What is DGR, Jenny? It is deductible gift recipient status. Deductible gift recipient status, DGR. All the information you need to know about it, the Australian Tax Office. I know we try to avoid that place as best we can, but ato.gov.au, Australian Tax Office. Bountiful information on DGR, fantastic resource. Questions, comments, clarification? Got one last one, Sadie?
Ooh. Yeah, can you come and work for me?
Yeah, talk to me offline, yeah? We'll discuss terms and conditions, yeah? Excellent. Can I thank everyone for being here tonight? Can I thank Shoalhaven Council? Can we thank Shoalhaven and putting this on, and for Michael organising this? Much appreciated. Thank you very much indeed. Kudos to Council, a good job, well done. Thank you for all for attending, much appreciated. As I said, you'll get a copy of the recording. I'll send it on to Council in the next 24 hours and they'll syndicate it out to you basically. Thanks for having me. Thanks, Michael. Much appreciated. I'll let you close out. Get that grant, everyone.
Cool.
Thank you.
Thanks so much, Keith. That was a great hour and really insightful. I hope everyone found it really useful. We will be putting the recording up on our website in due course, so keep an eye out so you can come back and revisit this. Tell your friends and tell other people in your organisation if they want to view it at a later date. That'd be great. And yeah, good luck everyone with your grant submissions. And thanks for attending tonight.
Thank you.
Take care, folks. Stay safe. All the best. Get that grant. Thank you.
Thanks,
Cheers.
Keith.
Bye.
Thank you.